Hello and welcome to Barbara's podcast. This is the show for women, all about health, nutrition, and wellness. It's the show that will empower you and inspire you to create a healthier lifestyle.
Hello and welcome. I'm Barbara Carafocus, a holistic nutritionist, and I'm thrilled to introduce Starlyn Hanneman, an anxiety freedom coach. She empowers women to rebel against anxiety and take control of their health and happiness on their terms. Welcome, Starlyn.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Barbara.
Well, it's my pleasure. Can you share more about your personal journey and how it all started?
Oh, yeah. So I would say that it's a very long journey, but the most recent part where I really realized kind of what was going on was just over 5 years ago. And I finally admitted that I might have anxiety. I didn't want to admit that before. I felt that if I had anxiety, that would show weakness. And I don't like to feel weak. I like to be in control and know what's happening. But I was overwhelmed. I'm a mom of 2 daughters. And at the time, they were 5 and 7 years old, roughly. And I was stressed out, overwhelmed, just having a really tough time. And I was using alcohol in the evenings to kind of unwind. And anytime I felt just that overwhelm and frustrated with the kids or like life was too much, then I would have a beer. And it wasn't like in the mornings, it wasn't all day, it was just at night, that need to feel like release, to feel at ease. And then I would, drink. Sometimes it was a couple drinks, sometimes it was more than a couple drinks. Okay. And I would then lay up at night. I'd go to bed and then I'd wake up in the middle of the night, so anxious, feeling like I was the worst human in the world, really just treating myself badly. And then I'd wake up in the morning and try and start all over again. And it was just a cycle that kept repeating. And I wasn't getting any outside help. And then the panic attack started. And I thought, okay, maybe there's more to this. Maybe I do need some help.
Some help, yeah.
Yeah. So I went to the doctor and I told them, and they of course prescribed me medication. And I took that and I hated the way it made me feel. It was just a slight like dulling of all my edges. I didn't feel 100% like myself. And it also made it so where I couldn't drink, because if I was drinking, then that's not a good thing with anxiety meds, I found out the hard way.
Yeah.
But it didn't ever feel like it was really it was never fully helping with making the anxiety go away. It was just sort of numbing everything in all ways. And I didn't like that.
So does that mean, so even, let's say you felt happy, or it would just numb all emotions in a sense?
At that point, I think I was really struggling to feel happy.
Yeah.
So when I look back, I don't even know if that was an emotion that I was really fully ever feeling.
Okay.
I was not in a great place, for sure. And I didn't really realize it till now that I'm on the other side. I'm like, oh, wow, I was really overwhelmed with life and I was really just struggling. And so I decided that the medication was not for me.
Yeah.
I didn't like talking about things, wasn't helpful. The medication wasn't helpful. I already had a solid background like with nutrition. And so I'd been eating well, but then it was like I would drink and it was okay because I ate well. It was one of those weird excuses you make for yourself that, I exercised, but it was almost I would wake up in the morning and exercise just to prove that I could do it. Like, look, I can drink at night, but still exercise, so I'm healthy.
Yeah.
It was very convoluted. So I struggled with like balancing those things. And so I had to take a step back, and I decided that I needed to stop drinking altogether and make some serious changes in my life. And so that's what I did. I decided that even though I thought it sounded stupid, I was going to start meditating. I was going to start a gratitude journal, and that was the beginning of my changes. And it turns out that meditation isn't stupid, and it actually does help.
Of course it does.
But it seemed like it was so simple. And that's what I've realized through this journey, is that it's the simple things that have the biggest impact. We think that it has to be this big fancy routine or these big massive changes, and that's not true at all.
No, it's not. I don't believe in going to the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, you know, that's what people do, and it's what's promoted. I see in social media as well, you know, extreme daily regimens, waking up at 4:30 and ending at 10.
Yeah. And that's, I always had that
And
feeling of like,
it's not sustainable, and I don't think it's necessary.
exactly, 100% unsustainable. But that's how I think our hustle culture life and like our societies have taught us that we have to be constantly pushing. We have to do it exactly right. And if we don't do it in that exact way, then we're failing.
Yeah.
And it was learning to give myself grace and to allow myself to make mistakes as a human, and to allow myself to not do things perfectly, that finally gave me a sense of peace and allowed that like anxiousness to kind of move out, and the perfectionism to move out. I think that was a big part for me, is I felt like I needed to be a certain way. And now I'm like, oh, I can just be human and I can make mistakes. And if I wake up and I don't feel like exercising, I don't have to. Like, it's that little bit of grace where it doesn't have to be perfect. And that allows you to stay consistent. Because I always thought consistent meant perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
And so it was that reframe in my mind that changed everything.
Yeah. Well, what other strategies do you implement to reduce stress? Are there maybe perhaps a couple of tips that you could share with our audience? Because I know a lot of the women do struggle. You know, they're mums with young children, and they do have a certain pressure, and anxiety.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to help them?
So some of the best things are free and easy. Those are my favorite things, very simple. And I know with young kids, it's really hard to find time to yourself.
Yeah.
And so I would say, if you can, try to find a few minutes where you can just breathe. Just be by yourself. If it's just for a few minutes, we usually have a couple minutes a day that we can just escape. If you can find that time to meditate or just breathe and just be in that moment where you're not worrying about the future, you're not worrying about the past, you're just being. Learning how to breathe was another big one for me. I always breathed into my chest, and I didn't realize that I need to be breathing more into my abdomen, to my stomach. So I was activating that fight or flight response even more, which I was already existing in, and I was making it worse. So learning how to breathe is a big thing. Gratitude journaling, or even if you don't have time to journal, you can't write it, just stopping for a minute and thinking, what am I grateful for? Because when I started to think more positive and less negative, I started to notice more positive, and I felt less. I started to see more goodness. So those were kind of the non-action sort of things that you can do. But move your body. That's the biggest thing I can say. And that does not mean you have to go to the gym. You don't have to have a strict cardio routine on a treadmill, go outside and walk. It kind of moves those emotions and feelings through your body and gets them out. You're out in nature, which expands your vision, which helps make you feel like your problems aren't so big, I feel. Yeah, though, like you're out in this vast world and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm this little person and my problems aren't so big. When we're in our house, I feel like everything can feel like it's crushing in around us. So going outside and moving your body, moving those feelings and emotions, being in nature, getting that sunlight, that can really change things when you're feeling stuck.
I agree with you there. I agree with it's one of my favorite go-tos, walking in nature, whether it's by the beach or in a park. And exercise also releases those good feeling hormones, endorphins, that makes you feel really good.
Yeah.
And when you start an upward spiral, then you can take the next step and the next step. But you have to take the first one.
You have to take the first one. And I think that we can get ourselves in this place where we think we have to have that big routine we were talking about, or we don't know where to start. And the thing is just start. And you just have to pick one thing. You don't have to have this elaborate plan. Just pick one thing and start doing it, and show yourself that you care about yourself and that you matter. And when you start to show yourself just that little bit of care and love, it's amazing how your nervous system can kind of calm down a little bit.
Yeah. Did you try any supplements?
I did try supplements. I actually worked with an integrative medicine practitioner after I'd kind of started my journey.
Okay.
And there was some changes, but honestly, I found the most changes came to me through my own actions and making those changes. And I think that could be because my diet was already pretty good. But there was some help. And I do think that is helpful if you are noticing that okay, I've gotten so far, but I need more help. Speaking to someone that can help you with, getting blood work done and seeing maybe where things are off, that can be very beneficial.
I've got one of my favorite go-to supplements when I'm feeling very, very stressed or overwhelmed. It's called ashwagandha.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's incredible. It's an incredible one. In a couple of days, you start feeling calmer and in a much better mood. I've no idea how it works, but it
I tried a lot of ashwagandha when I was in my really bad place, and I think it was so bad that it didn't help. I never noticed anything because I think I was so deep that I needed more than what that could give me. But I'd be curious to try it now, because even though I know these things and I live this life, I'm still a mom. I'm still running my own business. I still have life.
Yeah.
So I still experience anxious moments. I still experience stress, but I also don't let it consume me.
That's the important part.
Yeah.
Not to let it consume you.
Yeah.
So how do you manage? With your children, running a business, a sort of DIY house remodeling, and it's a lot of responsibilities to juggle. So how do you manage?
Well, I prioritize my mornings, which is so cliche, and we hear it everywhere. I'm a morning person, so this is not a difficult thing for me. I love early mornings. It feels like the best time of day to me. I wish it could always be early morning.
Me too.
But I get up and I immediately meditate, and then I go and I lift weights if I feel that that's what's right for me that day. So usually 3 or 4 days a week, I lift weights in my house, and that it's like an uncomfortable, hard thing that I've gotten out of the way. And it makes me feel like I've accomplished something and I can take on anything that day.
Yeah.
And so once I have that, then the rest of the day is kind of smooth sailing. If I decide I don't want to lift weights because I just don't feel like it, the rest of my day feels off.
Yeah.
If I decide that I need sleep because my body needs rest, there's a difference there. It's like I have listened to myself, I've respected myself, and then I just get up and go for a walk, and I don't beat myself up for not lifting, but I prioritize those mornings to where I know I'm getting time for meditation. I write in my journal and I work out, and then I get the kids up for school and the day starts. That would have been more difficult when I had little ones. Yeah. But I've been doing this since they were 5 and 7, and I'm sure that there are people out there that everyone's lives are different, but finding little bits of like ways that you can take control of your mornings and make it yours, rather than feeling like you're behind the 8 ball already, like your morning's gotten away from you before it's even started. That just sends us into a spiral already where we're anxious and trying to catch up the rest of the day. So I think that getting just some sort of small moment in the morning to say, like, I've got this, can set your whole day up properly.
I think it's as simple as waking up a little earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can take things slower, get more organized, do your exercise if that's what you want, and then start your day. Yeah. When you wake up a little later and you feel you don't have time, your day starts in a rush.
It does. It starts in a rush, and then I think the kids can feel that. If you're a parent, your kids feel that you're anxious and you're running around, and that kind of alters how they're existing in the morning. And so then the tensions can get kind of high, and next thing you know, everything's out of control, and you're like, wow, it's only 7:30 in the morning and everything is crazy. And then they leave for school and you're like, whew.
You can't think straight, and you've got to.
Yeah. So I prioritizing those things, and then throughout the day, I go for quite a few walks. I take the dog for a walk, and if I'm feeling stuck in my work or like I can't have a creative thought, I get up and I go for a walk, and that's much more productive than sitting and beating myself up because I can't figure something out. Or
yeah. The walk's so therapeutic. When in doubt, take a walk.
Exactly. Yes, it's a great motto.
What common challenges as an anxiety freedom coach, are there any common challenges that women face in rebelling against anxiety, and how do you help them navigate those challenges?
So I think a lot of people think that they have a time issue. Yeah. So I like to help people reframe that and look at how they are spending their time, because most women come to me and be like, I don't have time to take care of myself.
Yeah.
But when we really look at how they're spending their days and their times, like how much time are you spending staring at your phone? How much time are you spending watching Netflix? How much time are you spending just ignoring doing anything? There's a lot of wasted time that we're just trying to escape the moment because of that overwhelm and that anxiety. So when we can see that there's actually time, even if it's just 5 minutes, and start to reclaim that, that's one of the things I help people with. Another way that I help women with anxiety and changing, patterns in their life is reframing how they think of what it has to look like and how perfect things have to be. Okay. A lot of us think that things have to be exactly a certain way. We need to eat a certain way. We need to move a certain way. We have these very strict rules in place. And when we take a look at it and realize that something is better than nothing, because a lot of us get stuck in that start phase where we're over-researching, we're overthinking, and we don't know where we're supposed to go. So we're always just thinking about what we're supposed to be doing, but never actually doing the thing.
Yeah.
So I help people to move past that. Like, what's one thing that you can do today to move you towards your goals? Or what's one thing, because a lot of times anxiety comes from not feeling like we're enough or not doing enough. So what's one small thing you can do to show yourself that you can do it? So by figuring out ways to move your body in a way that you actually enjoy, because sometimes we don't move our bodies because we think we have to go run on a treadmill. Like, oh, I need it to look like this, or I need to lift weights. But sometimes dancing is just the best thing you could do. You get to shake your body and move around with happiness and joy, and you're moving. So just finding ways like that.
Well, everyone's different. We can't all do the same thing, and I always say you've got to find something that you love, something that you like to do. If you don't, it won't be sustainable. You're just going to quit after a while because you don't like it. It's
exactly when it feels forced or restrictive. Sometimes that can just shut you down completely. Same thing as eating. I help people with their eating because, like, part of anxiety, I think, is physical related, right? So if we can change our physical and how we're feeding ourselves and moving, we can change our anxiety. So looking at how people are eating, looking at what we could make some changes on, but making it not be a strict diet. I don't think that there's a one size fits all diet. I think everyone has different backgrounds, genetics. There's lots of different things. Also, our mindset towards it, right? Like, if it caused us some sort of trauma when we were a kid, we're not going to want to eat it. I have a thing with lima beans. I'm not going to eat them. I just don't want to. And that's okay. I'm not going to die if I don't eat lima beans. I can find those nutrients in other foods.
You eat other beans out of curiosity?
Yes.
So red kidney beans and...
Fun fact, I have always disliked beans and nuts. Okay. However, years ago, I was able to reframe it in my mind and think about it, be like, okay, these are all the health benefits. And I found ways that I enjoy eating them. I never want to grab a handful of almonds and just eat almonds. It's not enjoyable to me, but I can put them in things, mix them up with other things, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But I made it be more about, like, okay, what are the benefits? What are the positives of this? And not forcing it. I never forced myself to eat anything. But helping people realize maybe that if they're not starting their day off with sweets, where they get a glucose spike, and realizing how their body feels with different foods, you can still have the sweets. You can still enjoy life, but maybe start something out with more fats and proteins. So you don't have that crazy spike that happens and then you crash and then your body feels off.
Your mood and
So still getting to eat all the things you love, but just looking at when you're eating them, why you're eating them, maybe seeing if you're eating as a way to deal with your anxiety. I know that when I start to feel overwhelmed, I immediately want to go for the chocolate. But I'm like, sometimes that's okay. If you have a piece of dark chocolate and sit there and enjoy it and have that moment with it, I think that's perfectly acceptable. I don't think we need to beat ourselves up about that. Like, life is meant to be enjoyed fully.
That's what I say as well. You need to enjoy it, and why not have some food that you do enjoy? It's the how much and the when, just exactly how you mentioned it. I always say, have like 2 to 5% of your food, maybe junk.
Yeah.
If you want a handful of crisps, if you want some chocolate, it's how much.
Yeah. And allowing yourself that makes it not feel like it's bad.
Yes.
Where when you restrict it and say it's bad, I can't have that, then I think you want it more. It changes it in your mind where you're like, ooh, I really want that. And then if you do have it, you're like, well, I had that one cookie. Since I did that and it was bad, I'm going to have 6 more cookies.
Yes.
But
A
if
lot
you
of
allow
people-
yourself, you're like, I can have a cookie. You have the cookie and you're like, oh, that's all I needed. So changing in your mind how you're looking at those things, I think can affect you physically as well as mentally.
Mentally, yeah. Well, in closing, where could our audience get in touch with you? Would you like to share your socials? Even though I'll put them in the podcast description.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram at Starlyn Hanneman. And then I also have a website, wholesomerebelwellness.com.
Yeah.
And if you go to my link in bio, I do have a free gift. It's an anxiety SOS toolkit where you can download that, and it has some breathing techniques and tools to get you out of a really anxious moment. And then it has some more long-term like journaling prompts and that sort of stuff.
Thank you. That's lovely. Well, thank you for being such a lovely guest on the podcast and sharing all those valuable tips.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful to have a conversation.
Yes, that was my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Barbara's podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter or e-courses. Celebrate life, and see you at the next episode.